What if Nick Caley and the offense finish the season strong? What would that say about his future in Houston?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. I am your Texans credential media member and football analyst, John Hickman. Welcome to today's podcast, the Locked On Texans show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. A little fun show, conversation to be had. Going to dive into, has Caley done enough to buy himself another season after Sunday's victory? The last 3 to 4 games, he's been able to kind of string together some good moments as a play caller. Houston has Tennessee on Sunday. They could very well get to 5-5. They could very well clinch that 7th seed. As of right now, of course, would that bode well for his favor here in Houston? Got a Juice Scruggs interview I want to play for you guys. A quick conversation. Also, an early look at the Tennessee Titans, and that's how we will close out today's podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. When the season first started, Houston's offense scored 45 total points, 15 points per game, and started the season 0-3. There were doom and gloom around the entire city of Houston. If you were a Texan fan, you regretted everything about the offseason, specifically Nick Caley. Since then, Houston's offense has scored 140 points, 23 points per game, and has gone 4-2. First 3 games, third down conversion rate was a combined 24%. Houston was also 0-4 in the red zone. Since then, 41% conversion rate on third down and a 60% touchdown conversion rate in the red zone. Obviously, guys, there are still major concerns to be had, and I get it, but if we're being honest, Caley, in my opinion, has settled in as a play caller. The issue with Nick Caley was always been, Houston got him in year 3 of CJ Stroud's career and not in year 1. So the expectation of what the quarterback play and the franchise should look like is a whole lot different compared to what it may have looked like in 2023 when it was Bobby Slowick instead of Nick Caley. But his biggest compliment of the year, I think, needs to be said and highlighted, that just as much as Stroud has had to work with the patchwork offensive line, the injuries at wide receiver and tight end, the rookie implementation process, Nick Caley has had to do the same thing. Granted, when you look at some of the rookie implementation process, like putting Woody Marks out there, the snap shares between Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel compared to a Christian Kirk and Xavier Hutchinson, he has a lot to do with that, and I understand that. But the two have both endured an offensive line that has experienced several different combinations, including the everlasting pursuit of who's going to be this team's left guard. That goes back to what he had to work with coming into the season from the offseason decisions that are over his head. Houston's most reliable lineman this year has been a rookie. It's been Arion Terry. They have both experienced not having a tight end 2 on this roster. Insert the jumbo set. Since the Tennessee Titans game in week 4, Houston is averaging 119 yards on the ground per game, 4.2 yards per carry, with 4 games over 120 or more yards on the ground during that span. Personnel and situational awareness has still been an inconsistent issue for Caley in the offense, no doubt about that. And in a lot of ways, I think he is still figuring himself out in which background to lean on all issues. But a selling point for Caley coming into this thing was his ability to make adjustments. Let's look at some of the adjustments he's had to make in season, assisting his quarterback and offensive line by intentionally creating quick play opportunities to neutralize opposing defensive fronts. The sack percentage per play is down compared to the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season. The intentional involvement of Dalton Schultz. And let me tell y'all something, man. This is a Dalton Schultz appreciation moment because Dalton Schultz has been a very good football player for the Houston Texans. And just to look at some of his numbers with 8 games left, Dalton Schultz is 94 yards away from his 2024 total yards on the year, 8 receptions away from his 2024 number at 53, 26 targets away from his 2024 number, 85, 1 first down away from his 2024 number, which is 26. It's not sexy, but it's impactful. And I think the arrival of Nick Caley has a lot to do with that. And honestly, guys, he's been working with one tight end essentially all year. And again, the jumbo package and utilizing Blake Fisher due to not having another trustworthy option at tight end to help in the run blocking, or pass protection. His work with CJ Stroud and recognizing and reacting to the opposing team defenses starting to show a lot more throughout this season. And at a time or two, it's resulted in a first down or a touchdown, being able to move the chains or score points. Caley needs grace. A lot of y'all don't want to hear that. A lot of y'all may not want to give him grace because of the misfortune that he had to take on, and also the mishandling of putting together a competitive roster and covering up the holes that the Houston Texans had that were extremely glaring before we got to the regular season. But here on the Locked On Texans podcast, when credit is due, I'm going to pay the tab. If Houston finds a way to string together some of these games late and make it close at the end and the offense is holding up their side of the bargain, I think there should be a strong consideration for Nick Caley to return for the 2026 season. I think so. He's done some good things, and I think we have to look at it. And he's overcome some of his own transgressions, which, again, when we consider and compare 2024 to 2025, the conversation around Bobby Slowick 9 times out of 10 was he was not able to make the adjustments to his own script, his own play calling decisions. Well, Nick Caley, and it may have not been major, but in minor ways, he's been able to kind of overcome that. Absolutely, they got to be better in the red zone. Absolutely, right? But let's look at how he's gotten better in the red zone. Against the Denver Broncos, they got down to the 1-yard line, and look at the sequences of play callings against Denver. Okay, they got down to the 2 or 3 yard, maybe the 1-yard line against Jacksonville, and look at the sequence of play calling. Look at how the play calls worked out in the red zone. I think Houston was 4 or 5 in the red zone on Sunday. My favorite play of the game was a toss to Woody Marks because he now has trust that his most reliable offensive lineman, his best offensive lineman, Ariante Ursary, is able to get out in space and put a hat on somebody to make way for a rushing touchdown. So you look at a week in, a week out adjustment. They should consider him if Houston can make a true push at that 7th seed. Now up next, a quick conversation with Juice Scruggs, plus the conversation around the early look at the Tennessee Titans, a team Houston should beat kind of heavily. Before we get to that conversation, it's very important to talk about making sure that mentally you are in a great space. I think Sunday's victory put every Texan fan and people who follow the Houston Texans in a great space, but sometimes we don't get the Houston Texans to bail us out, right? I'm going to tell y'all who we can get to help us get through our days, BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it is so important to reach out and check in with family, friends, and even yourself. We got to do this. We have to check in with one another. Just like checking on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits, reaching out for therapy can make a real difference as well. BetterHelp makes the first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from whenever you are ready. I've noticed that simply talking things through, even for a few minutes, helps clear my head and get me back on track. This is just my own personal way of picking myself up, guys. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist who fits your needs, and you can switch anytime if it's not the right match. Over 5 million people have already used BetterHelp, and with 30,000 therapists available. Finding support really is just a few clicks away. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. Listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/locked-on. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked-on, because taking that step towards support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Again, visit BetterHelp.com/locked-on. Continuing the conversation of just where Houston is right now. And I got a real shot at this thing, y'all. One thing I've been waiting to say this. We don't got to fire up the mock drafts right now. Some of us was ready. I was one of them people at the Denver game. I said, man, let me go ahead and get to scouting. My everydayers from the Himalayas know that I love to scout. I love going to watch college players. And the season isn't over. It's been a good season. One of the more odder Heisman Trophy winner seasons, but it's been some good football being played. Bama back into the swing of things with Ty Simpson. And obviously, Houston doesn't need a quarterback, but Caleb Downs maybe at safety. Maybe you look at Lemon for USC. Maybe Houston wants to invest into another receiver. Who knows? But we don't got to get to the mock drafts just yet. We don't. But one thing that I want us to get to is a conversation with Juice Scruggs, who was inserted into the offensive line. Again, we talk about ups and downs. City Soul should have never been in that position. But after 9 snaps, Houston pulled him, inserted Juice Scruggs. So after the game, I had an opportunity to catch up with Juice. Let me tell y'all something. Juice is just like me. That's a polo man. Let's hear from Scruggs. First off, I want to shout out your post-game gear. Players only live once. I got to shout that out. But he was inserted into the game a little bit later in the game. Mm-hmm. We also saw this team be able to run the ball effectively. Right. Make an assertive effort, which is something that both Nick Caley and D'Amico Ryans has talked about somewhat ad nauseum. But you guys today executed. Can you just talk about the game plan and going into that, and how were you able to execute personally?
Yeah, definitely. Run the ball was definitely the game plan. That's really the game plan every week for us, but it's just about us executing, like you said, and we went out there and did it today. And really, for us and for myself, like for the O-line, it just come down to the fundamentals, the details, and the basics. And I feel like today we did better, but we can always take another step, and I feel like we got to do that next week.
It's a different play style in terms of blocking for CJ, blocking for Davis Mills, and did the quarterback play impact the outcome of the game in terms of how you guys went about protection up front?
I feel like both of them are like similar. As far as blocking wise, they both lead the offense pretty good. I feel like Davis came in, stepped up, next man up mentality. And shout out to him because, it's hard being the backup quarterback because you never know when your time's going to come. And he was ready when his time came. And as for us, we was just trying to give him as much time as possible, let him be able to make plays, and he executed, man.
We speak a little bit towards rookie running back Woody Marks. It's one of his better games of the season. Of course, an impactful player, but, what were some of the things that he was doing to take advantage of the holes you guys were able to create? Yeah,
Woody, man, he's getting better and better every week. He just come to work every day, don't say too much, head down work. Shout out all the running backs are like that, man. Him, Chubb, Dare. They just come to work and they don't say too much and put their head down and work. And Woody, his vision is getting better and better, and he's starting to see the holes, and he's realizing, like, in the league, hole might not be as big as in college, but he's realizing that, and he's getting better for sure.
If you could give a message to the defense, specifically Danielle Hunter, what would that message be?
Thank you, for real. They've been playing lights out, especially Danielle. Man, we had 4 sacks, something like that.
3.5.
Man, like that's unheard of. So shout out to those guys, man. Keep hunting, keep swarming, and we just gotta match the intensity.
Just a little appreciation question for head coach D'Amico Ryans. You guys are 4-5 now. Playoff hope still alive, and just can you talk about the messages that he's been able to kind of give to y'all to just stay in the fight, continue to go, and how that's played out into the victory today?
Really just one day at a time. That's really been the message. Just taking it one day at a time, one play at a time, and from there, just win by win. 1-0 each week, You never know what can happen.
Juice.
That was Juice Scruggs. Fresh in the locker room. Simple yet fresh. Players only live once. And Jared Patterson and Juice Scruggs, they have been essentially kind of skipped over a lot in terms of how Houston can really go about creating cohesiveness with this offensive line, but they always seem to be where they need to be for the team exactly when they call on them. And so for Juice, it's been a rocky road here in Houston. Same with Jared Patterson. But moving forward, when I have to look at an early look at the Tennessee Titans game, I feel like moving forward, we know the defense is going to make life hell for opposing offenses. We just know that. They've been able to do it all year. Houston's defense has taken away what teams traditionally do well all year and use it against them. Like even when you go to Seattle in that game, they created 4 turnovers. Seattle is not a team that gives away the ball, a lot this year, right? So the defense we know will be there. But when we talk about the early look at the Tennessee Titans, it's going to start up front. And up front is the offensive line. What made Sunday's victory so astonishing, in my opinion, was the best blocking through 4 quarters, especially second half, that we've seen from Houston all year. Davis Mills had time in the pocket like we haven't seen a lot here in Houston. If you go back and look at that Dalton Schultz touchdown at the back of the end zone, Mills had about 6 seconds to get that ball out. Maybe a little bit more. I maybe a little bit over-exaggerating, but the amount of time Mills had to get that ball out to find Dalton Schultz at the back of the end zone was astonishing. So it's going to start up front. I'm not sure what Jeffrey Simmons is right now for the Tennessee Titans. Not sure if he's going to play. He has 4.5 sacks this year. But if the offensive line can continue to hold up and play football the way that they did against Jacksonville, and that Jacksonville offensive line, that features Josh Hines-Allen, Eric Armstead. That features a good bunch. If they could produce that, whether it's Davis Mills or CJ Stroud, and I am opting for Davis Mills being good enough to beat the Tennessee Titans, then that will allow for the offense to build on the 26-0 fourth quarter performance, scoring 26 straight points. That will allow for the offense and Nick Caley to get more of a rhythm and create that rhythm, which when you look at who Houston has to play, like we move a little bit further, and I don't want to kind of talk too far ahead because Houston is they're in a must-win mode for the rest of the season, and Tennessee can absolutely not be a trap game. That 1-8 Tennessee team cannot beat Houston, but it can set Houston up offensively for the Bills, for the Colts, for the Chiefs, for the Cards, for the Raiders. The Tennessee game, building off of what they did against Jacksonville, going into Tennessee is one of those games, one of those moments where for Houston, you build off of what you're putting out on the tape. And for a team that rushed for 5.9 yards per carry, that allowed for Davis Mills to have over 300 all-purpose yards, 3 TDs, how were they able to get to that point? It wasn't magic from Mills. Like, he went out there and he balled out for sure, but it felt like for the first time, Nick Caley had everything at his fingertips to operate an offensive line that cannot get blown back in the run game so they can get to the second level. They can create creases. My running back is using his vision to get up the field. I'm getting the ball out quickly, so I'm able to get guys like Jaden Higgins involved underneath and Dalton Schultz, get him involved underneath. Everything worked out in favor, and Houston needs to build on that against the Tennessee Titans, and I think that they will. That's why it starts with the guys up front, the offensive line. If they give Davis Mills or CJ Stroud time in the pocket, and if they give those running backs opportunities to get to the second level and not have to deal with as much yards before contact, then the game can get ugly real early for the Houston Texans, and that's exactly what they need. So we're going to talk more about Tennessee in the game that the Houston Texans got to play on Sunday. We've got a crossover on Thursday, of course, but we're going to have much more of a early look conversation when I return. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Also, Texan fans, the NBA season is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Continuing today's conversation with just an early look on the Tennessee Titan game, we just saw the Texans defense go crazy. And that was anchored by their line, their front line. So when I look at some of the things that the Houston Texans could do to secure themselves a victory, number one is just making sure that they don't let up on Cam Ward. One of the biggest issues that I see for Tennessee, and I like Cam Ward, so hopefully they fix it. He has no real weapons. Calvin Ridley is at best a wide receiver 2 in this league. And as of late, he's played like a wide receiver 3. He doesn't look engaged at all. Loser can do that. I understand it. But outside of Calvin, really, there's no real running attack. There's no other wide receiver 2 or 3 on that team. Tyler Lockett is now he is where he is. They signed him in the offseason. Io, the rookie, who they drafted this year, he's been up and down. But when you don't have an offensive line that can give your quarterback the amount of time that he needs to scan the field, and then also when you have a play caller in Bryce Callahan who is no longer there, and that offense stunk his tenure during his tenure, then you can make the excuses for the quarterback because the situation is just bad. Some of these quarterbacks walk into god-awful situations, and I think that's what Cam Ward has. That's one of his issues in Tennessee. That being said, he's still got to play him. Tennessee still has to play a game. And because of the pressure teams have been able to create on Cam Ward, 5 times this year, he has a completion percentage of under 60%. Not a threat to create plays with his legs. That's a problem when that offensive line is as bad as it is. Offensive line and Cam Ward have accounted for 38 sacks on the year. Cam alone, according to PFF, has accounted for 8 sacks. And he's not hitting much over 10 yards. Under 40% on 10 or more yards downfield. Again, that could be due to the lack of separation wide receivers are creating, the lack of weapons around him, and also just his own miscues and errors. So for Houston, every game moving forward, must-win game, right? We can agree on that. We can recognize and we understand that Tennessee cannot be labeled well, it could be labeled as a trap game, but it should not be labeled as a trap game. Houston should, all things considered, Houston should handle business easily against the Tennessee Titans. And on one side, I talk about the offensive line setting the way for their offense to have another performance like it did in the fourth quarter against the Jacksonville Jaguars, building off of what they were able to do against San Fran, against Tennessee, the first time they played them against Baltimore, right? Some of those moments where they looked like offensively they were able to string it all together. That needs to happen. On the flip side, it needs to be one of those days where we're looking up and watching the game and thinking to ourselves, man, they may need to pull Cam Ward from this game to give this guy a break. You got Danielle Hunter, who's on fire right now. I'm sure he wants to continue his tear. Will Anderson, who never wants to be late to the party or don't want to be invited to the party. You know Will want to have one of those multi-sack days, right? Derek Stingley with maybe the interception of the year, a play that gave Houston life, gave him a chance. Kamari Lassiter continues to stack days. And I'm going to also say this. I expect for Jalen Petrie to play on Sunday. My speculation. We haven't got official word on it, but because of the injury to MJ Stewart, who's going to be out for the season, Houston is going to have to look towards help from maybe a rookie in Jalen Reed. This could be a perfect game to maybe move chess pieces around the board a little bit to see what works best in preparation for the final 7 or so games to close out the year. And what I'm getting at is, okay, should Houston flirt with Jalen Petrie playing back a little bit? Now, obviously, they put Miles Bryant back there. Miles Bryant was decent in his role, right? Houston runs a lot of cover 3. They run a lot of cover 3, so they trust Kalen Bullock in his second year to be back there and make plays. And he's gotten better this year. They have the corners to kind of do that more often than other teams. And they have the defensive front to create pressure, so it's not all on the secondary. They play off of each other very well. But do they look to get Jalen Petrie involved back deep a little bit and maybe move him around up front? And depending on what the situation is, depending on where the first down market is, depending on what side of the field that they're on, I think that's something that we need to keep an eye out on. But how teams look like this, how the national media and maybe the Seattle Seahawks themselves was viewing the Houston Texans offensively, that's how Houston should view Tennessee offensively on the defensive side of the ball. They should look at a quarterback that is struggling on the year. Cam Ward looks like one of the worst first-round draft picks we've seen in a while. First picks overall. And I don't think that's all due to him. I really don't. I think he walked into a mess of a situation with an owner that should have moved on from the head coach well before Cam Ward got there. With an owner that moved on from the general manager that kind of played into getting Cam Ward, but didn't get the opportunity to fulfill what his vision was. An owner who's just screwing up the Tennessee Titans. Can't right the wrong against a defense like this. Houston should absolutely walk out of that game 5-5, and their chances to get that 7 seed and make the playoffs should be brighter. And Tennessee should absolutely walk out of that game while they are at home 1-9 on the season. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Crossover this week with my man Tyler, the Madman Roland. That's going to be fun. I know Tyler going to give us something we'll be able to clip up and use throughout the week, but make sure you follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about Nick Caley sticking around maybe another year. Do you disagree? Do you agree that there has been some positive that we can pull from the start of the season to where the Houston Texans are right now? Let me know how you feel. But until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans around the world, peace.